This episode was recorded for my YouTube channel, TC with Lilly. You can look it up online. I'll put the links in the description. But I thought it was too good to pass up and not post as a podcast episode. So if you hear me reference TC with Lilly, that is the show on YouTube. But for now, let's get into these book recommendations. And let me know in the comments what books you have read or plan on reading, and if you've read any of the books I mentioned here. TC with Lilly, book haul / book recommendations. Let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of TC with Lilly, a day in the life of a real estate transaction coordinator. Today we are getting into books. All of the books that I read this year and how they've impacted my life, how they've shifted my thinking, and how I'm continuing to grow and develop as a real estate professional and entrepreneur. Before we get started, are you subscribed? Hit that share, hit that like button, and leave a comment. Let me know what you are reading in the comments so we could share this as a community and we can share our resources and what we're reading and educating ourselves on to continue to develop as amazing, beautiful people that we already are. Before I jump into the books that I've read so far in this past year, I have always struggled with reading and just being patient and sitting down. And every time I opened a book, I'd start reading and then I'd immediately fall asleep. But reading was always something that I wanted to conquer. It was my mission to be one of those cool people just reading on vacation, or just even in conversation, people saying, "Oh, have you read this? Have you read this?" And I made it a mission for me to just get into reading. But I had to pick books that I was interested in. So I started buying more books that were about business, about personal development, real estate, finances. I love talking about money. I love reading about money. I love personal development books and ways I can improve and help myself and coach myself through certain situations and scenarios. So if it wasn't for picking up this habit of reading, I don't know where I would be mentally, spiritually, professionally. I cannot stress the importance of reading. And you don't have to physically read a book. I was doing Audible books in the very beginning. I love the app Audible. There are other options as well. YouTube is an option if you're on a budget. When I was balling on a budget and things were tight, I went to YouTube, but I made sure I paid it forward once I got the funds and purchased hard books and trying to support local bookstores and whatnot. So anyway, let's get into this book haul / book recommendations for real estate professionals, entrepreneurs, or anyone focused on their own personal development and self-improvement. Let's go. Okay, here we go, guys. Here we go. These are just a few, actually, I'm going to go through that I read this year. Can you see them? Can you see them? Some I've read, some I started, and one I am currently reading. So let's get into the main attraction, the book that really changed my life. And that is, and let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books as well and what you thought of them, if they worked, if you are still struggling implementing some of these tools and this education and this information in your life. Let me know. Let's talk about it. But Atomic Habits. There we go. Atomic Habits by James Clear. This book has to find you. I can't stress that enough. And what I mean by this book has to find you, I mean that when you are ready to make that real shift, and I don't mean like a temporary, I think I'm ready to change my life, or I think I'm ready to try some new things. I mean, read it whenever you want. And that's the thing. We can read all the books, but if we're not taking action, it's kind of pointless to read any of these books. I mean, it's great to have the conversation, but if you're not actually implementing the information that is supplied to you, it's going to make it difficult to really improve your life if you're just being stagnant. But anyway, I'm not going to judge anyone's journey. For me, it's called Tiny Changes, Remarkable Results. it's not called that, but that's what it says on the cover. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. This, for me, exposed a lot of my bad habits, and it also fixed or corrected a lot of my good habits as well. For instance, like habit stacking is one of the practical ways that we can get a lot more done or have a better use of our time throughout the day versus waiting to do certain things. It's like we can just get to it right away. But this book, buy it, read it, listen to it. Join his newsletter too. I've joined a lot of newsletters and I've unsubscribed to many, but his is one of the best that I look forward to. It's concise, much like this book, very concise, easy, practical. It's just the way he simplified certain things that helped correct some of my bad habits and given me and blessed me with greater and better habits. It's presented and written in a way that's easily digestible, that I feel like anyone at any stage of your life can be impacted by reading this book. So that's why I wanted to share this one first, because I've had many conversations with people in my circle, in my family, in my business community, and everyone always comes back to this one and how we should read it at least twice a year. And like I said, I didn't like reading. I never read this many books in a year for fun, for school, for work, for my, if it was mandatory, yeah, but for fun, like I wake up and I want to read now. Like the days I don't read or don't have time to read, I feel off. It's a part of my ritual, my daily ritual now is like reading. And I'm usually able to get, based on my schedule, I'm usually able to get a new book every month. I'm able to read a new book every month, depending on the length and, like I said, my time schedule and whatnot. But for the most part, I read for about an hour a day in the mornings. And then if I have time throughout the rest of the day, I'm inside a book. But this one really kicked off, made a huge impact in my life. And for anyone out there, I highly recommend Atomic Habits. Next. So this one, I started this one, I think before Atomic Habits, but I kind of veered away from it because I was so immersed into the personal development world and self-improvement lifestyle. But this was a really good one. I think I'm like a quarter into it. I don't know where my bookmark is, but it's called Money Master the Game. And it talks a lot about, 7 simple steps to financial freedom. And this book, at the beginning of the year, I had signed up for a life insurance plan. And I'm going to be a little vulnerable here, but I had signed up for a third life insurance plan. But my intention with this specific life insurance plan was to leverage it. And intention with this specific life insurance plan, and I got the life insurance plan before I started reading this book and before I started educating myself. I just kind of jumped in and heard this is what you're supposed to do, but I didn't educate myself on the matter. I just did it because I heard someone say it, which is what you should never do. Always educate yourself before you invest money or time in anything that is outside of your wheelhouse or your realm or your scope of work. So I started this book was recommended to me by Ian Dunlap on Market Mondays. I don't know Ian personally, but he is one of my financial educators that I religiously follow and trust in this industry. And he always talks about this book. It's pretty big, it's pretty thick, it's almost 700 pages, but it's an easy read. Easy is subjective, because if you don't have much knowledge about the stock market or that verbiage or those terms, it may be a little difficult to get through it right away. But at the time of when I started this book, I was already sort of immersed into that world. I had started investing in the stock market. And anyway, back to the life insurance plan. they were talking about mutual funds and things like that. So I was just like, okay, I've heard good things about those, so let's do it. I got through, I think, 2 chapters of this book, and within 2 chapters he educated me on why not to buy a life insurance plan to invest in the stock market. And I'm not able to fully articulate it, so I'm not going to even try. But in this book, he breaks it down, and the following day, I canceled that life insurance plan and cashed out whatever was in there. And I was like, you know what? It would be a lot more effective for me to just stay with my brokerage account I have. I'm working with Fidelity right now to buy my stocks, my ETFs, index funds, all of that. So I saved myself money. I saved myself all of the taxes and fees and commissions that I would have to pay. Not to mention that the money that was coming out of my account just to hold the life insurance plan. The cash value wasn't going to grow for another couple of years because I wasn't investing that much in that particular plan. But within a chapter or 2, this book easily helped me make better financial decisions. I feel more aligned with my decisions. I feel more confident with my financial decisions. So it was important that it's important that I finish this book. Like I said, I'm not done yet. I don't remember where I'm at, but I think I'm about halfway into it. But I'm gonna get back to this one because I ended up reading Atomic Habits and just went down this rabbit hole of self-improvement, coaching, books. So next, bonus recommendation. I don't have the book in front of me. It's actually at my parents' house, but I'm gonna insert like a photo here or here. It's Get Good with Money by the Budgetnista, aka Tiffany Aliche, aka the Budgetnista. So Get Good with Money, 10 simple steps to becoming financially whole. I love the Budgetnista. I've been following her and her journey and her courses for almost a decade now. She has helped me become more financially empowered. She has educated me, and she has a podcast as well, Brown Ambition podcast with Mandy Money, her co-host. Highly recommended. The 2 of them are so generous with their knowledge and their business acumen, and they share their entrepreneurial journeys and what the mistakes they've made and what not to do, what books to read. A couple of these books were recommended to me by the Budgetnista. Like any book she recommends, I'm buying it and I'm reading it immediately. So that's why I was a little bit interrupted with the Money Master the Game book, because Tiffany, the Budgetnista, had recommended a couple of books, and I was just like, you know what, I gotta read those ASAP because she said they work. I'm gonna give it a try and see what happens. So a couple of those recommendations I'll get into shortly, but for now, let me know in the comments what you're reading. If you've read any of these 3 books, let me know. But either way, they're all great reads, and I really highly recommend you check them out. So next, I think a lot of us have seen this book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Beep. I think a lot of us have seen this book on shelves everywhere. I know every time I would travel, I would see it at the airport, and I'd be like, that's a funny name. That's a funny name. And then I go to Target, it's right there as well. And one day I just decided to buy it. It had been sitting on my shelf for a while, and I felt it was the appropriate time to read this after I read Atomic Habits. I was in a place now of making better decisions for my life, but I still was struggling with how I was utilizing my time and what I was giving my attention to, and if it, losing sight of what was a priority and who was a priority, who is a priority. And this book just kind of helped me trim all that fat and get rid of all that excess, and to just focus and narrow in on what is actually and who is actually important in my life, and to not care that I may be hurting anyone or that it may make me look different towards other people. But to me, that's growth. Growth. And we all have to grow, and we may outgrow people, we may outgrow jobs, we may outgrow clothes, we may outgrow ourselves. And I know I'm in a new phase and I'm in a new era in my life where I'm just interested in learning and developing and spending and saving and investing my money wisely, and I'm nurturing and careful with the relationships I currently have. And anyone new that comes into my life, I'm very intentional with my conversations. And it's all a part, it's all because of this book and all the other books I've read, and very intentional and curious in the best way possible in order to maintain those friendships or those new relationships or those partnerships, or just make it easier for me to move on with my life without feeling guilty or feeling like I've hurt someone or that I have to always be the one reaching out. No. We must take care of ourselves first. Everything else comes after. This next book was recommended by the Budgetnista, and as soon as she recommended it, it was in the cart at my house within days. And as you see, I had notes on notes on notes. The 12-week year. The 12-week year. Get more done in 12 weeks than others do in 12 months. By Brian P. Morgan and Michael Lennington. I'm gonna read one of the quotes on the back of the book, just so I could better articulate how I experienced this book. This book takes all of the core business principles I believe are so valuable: discipline, consistency, focus, intensity, ownership, accountability, and planning, and puts them all together in a straightforward system that actually works. What more can you ask for? So that was by Matthew E. Winter, president of Allstate Auto, Home, and Agencies. So the 12-week year, this really kicked it up a notch, a few notches. As you see, I took it very seriously. Anytime there were moments in the book where we needed to answer questions or create a life, what is this next phase of our life going to look like? What does this mean to you? Or let's see, like, what is this note, for instance? So I had to write down. So one of the exercises was to write down your aspirational vision, your 3-year vision, and it's almost like a vision board, but with more practical steps and getting it done within 12 weeks. I know it sounds outrageous, but this book led me to launching my podcast. I really was able to focus and narrow down that I'm ready to start my podcast, and I'm going to do it within the next 12 weeks. And I did just that. I was a little overly ambitious. I'm not going to lie. I was very overly ambitious in terms of, I'm going to start my coaching business. I'm going to drop courses. I'm going to release a podcast and merchandise and digital products and downloads. And none of that happened except for the podcast, because I got too excited, and that was something I learned about myself as well, which I'm so grateful for, because I didn't realize I was planning my ideas the moment they popped in my head versus just writing them down and scheduling time at a later date to plan it out or to see if it even still resonates with me. But anyway, it came down to the podcast, and within 12 weeks, my podcast was live. And what helped me get to that point, I'll get into in the next book, but with the 12-week year was great. I went through this book as quick as possible because I was so eager to just start, but I also made sure I did every single exercise the moment it appeared in the new chapter. So this might be another book I read more than once, much like Atomic Habits, but highly recommended. 10 out of 10. Can't stress that enough. Before I could launch a podcast, I had to educate myself on how to be a better marketer and how to launch a product or a course or whatever the case may be. And what helped me do that, and what is continuing to help me go through that process, is the book Launch by Jeff Walker. And it's I got the updated, expanded, and even more awesome version. And another recommendation by the Budgetnista. She's actually in the forward. When the author updated the forward, she had left an Amazon review for the book. Never knew him. She just was so impacted by this book. It helped her. This book helped her to make over $1 million in her first launch. Like, what? What? When you hear stories like that, you can't help but be a little curious and want to also make over $1 million. I'm not there yet. I'm just saying, if it worked for them, it could possibly work for me. So let's give it a try. But he basically just uses kind of like a case studies to tell his story and weave it into ways you could launch your business and when to launch your business. Like, it's like step by step. So this is definitely a great guide. The formula he has is tight and it works. So highly recommended if you plan on launching any type of business, course, or anything that's going to change your life. This is a good guide to start with. And he also has a great newsletter, but the emails got a little excessive, so I kind of had to unsubscribe. Sorry. Had my vision of like, oh, I'm going to drop all this stuff at the same time. That didn't work out. But I realized patience is a virtue, and I don't want anything for me before it's meant for me. So I'm taking my time. I'm implementing all of the knowledge and information that I got in these books into my life. And now I'm transitioning more into like a mentoring, coaching mindset and working on that being a part of my next business venture. So I was recommended by my coaches these 2 books, and I'm currently reading this one, and I already read this one. It's another, it's a self-coaching 101, Use Your Mind, Don't Let It Use You, is the name of the book, by Brooke Castillo, and she's a master certified coach. As you see, again, more papers that I've added. So whenever you're reading these personal development books or any book, I like to keep a notebook handy, pen and paper, old school. I still like to write, but you can also keep notes in your phone. But this one had exercises that required you to answer questions and really get in touch with yourself, which were great, because oftentimes I just kind of read and go through these books and don't put in the extra effort to implement it into my life. So this was one of those books that had that, a lot of feelings, thoughts, circumstances, actions, results. That's kind of the basis and the foundation of her coaching style. And she's taken all of her package is based on her favorite coaches and self-help gurus and things like that. So she references them a lot in this book, and that's how she came up with her formula and how she uses it with her customers and her clients to coach them, as well as coaching herself. And then finally, this was also recommended to me in my group coaching community, as well as by my coach. Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. I had never heard of many of these books a year ago, and here I go, having read all of them. I'm almost done with this one, actually. Like I said, when it comes to personal development and self-improvement, I really am taking my time to digest the information. So I read a chapter a day, and there's, I think, how many chapters? 12 chapters and an epilogue. So I'll be done with this in a few days, but I have pages bookmarked. I also have I highlight a lot. I love to highlight important parts of the book that I could reference at a later date. But I have folded pages. I don't have notes on this one yet, because a lot of the information is pretty straightforward in the book, and she tells a story to get her point across with changing your questions, changing your life. And basically the premise of the book is being in judger mindset versus learner mindset. And in like the week I've been reading this book, I already find myself shifting my thoughts when I'm starting to feel those like judgmental feelings arise. I'm like, am I in judger or am I in learner? And she has a lot of great questions and scenarios in this book that give those solutions life and to help you not be so rigid or hard a lot of the times. And I know we all can be. And we're not perfect. She even mentions in the book, like, you can't not ever be in judger mode. That's always going to happen because we're human. But she is equipping us with the tools and with a roadmap of questions and answers and decisions we could make in order to get out of that mode and back into learner, where we can become more curious and get to know people and get to know ourselves and shed a lot of those hard layers that we tend to carry or lead with. And I'm loving it. As I mentioned, I'm going towards more of a coaching, mentoring role in my business, and these types of books are where I'm at these days. If you like reading a different genre, let me know in the comments as well. I have a whole other list of books that I'm gonna get into next year. These are the books I read in 2022. It's the week before Christmas at the time of this recording. Actually, Christmas is like 4 days away. I can't even believe it. But I'm very proud of myself for reading this many books. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I was not a reader. It would take me forever to get through books, and I just had to find the books that were for me and not just be reading any book for the sake of, I read a book, but to actually read books with intention. And every single one of these books has impacted my life. Oh wait, let me get this one in there for the thumbnail. Now let's go here. Books on books on books. And definitely get you some books, educate yourself, empower yourself. My confidence comes from educating myself. I can't stress that enough. My confidence comes from educating myself, and the more I feed my brain, the more empowered I feel to walk into different rooms, to go after the client, my dream client, or go after my dream job, or to even let go of certain people that no longer suit me. And it comes from reading, it comes from ingesting information, watching, listening to podcasts, watching how-tos, and taking educational courses. Whatever trajectory or road you choose to empower yourself, go for it. Go for it, go for it, go for it. And if you're still not a fan of reading, like I said, there's audio version of books where you can just listen while you're walking or you're working or just in the background while you're cleaning. That's a great resource as well. But I will put links to all of these books in the description below so you can purchase them immediately. These are great reads. Atomic Habits is still my #1 choice. It's going to be one of those books I read every year. And let me know what you're reading. Let me know what I should be reading or what you can recommend based on where I'm at in life right now. And I'll check it out. And should I start a book club? Book club? Book club? Book club? How are we feeling? If I started a book club, would you join? Let me know. Until the next episode, this is TC with Lilly, a day in the life of a real estate transaction coordinator. And these are the books I read in 2022. Wow. Go me. Let me know in the comments what you've read and any book recommendations you have. I'm open to checking them out. And until the next episode, care for yourself, care for your wealth. Your time is worth it. Let's coordinate. You gotta coordinate. Name that movie. Talk soon. Lilly out.